All right, another week. We've made it. Back with the Trash Cast. Your host Mathias, along with the boys,
John.
And Will.
Will. Well, I say let's just jump right into the GW news, shall we?
Go for it.
You don't want to create any delays? I'm sure we could come up with like a delay.
I'm pretty sure we could, but I think we'll save it for the Hobby Rant section.
That's fair. That's where meandering belongs, I suppose.
Yes. All right. So first off, we got a Angels of Death trailer finally dropping. This is been in talks for a while, right? If I recall. This is part of the first animations they mentioned, right? Or am I thinking of a different Blood Angels cinematic trailer?
It's tricky to keep it all straight, but I think this is a more recent thing that they've announced because I believe this is working with the fellow who did Astartes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Just different. Just different.
Oh,
Anyways, well, getting another animation announced. Did you guys happen to take a look? Any interest at all, or is it just more false promises in the wind?
oh, I fact checking myself. This is Richard Boylan, who's the guy who did um, the Hell's Reach animations.
Oh.
So you are correct, Matt. This one was announced a while ago.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I thought this was it.
You were right, but more importantly, I was wrong, and I was wrong on record. So if this isn't edited out, everybody will know what a fool I am. Good job, Matt.
No problem, you know. I may not keep up with the animation at all, but I remember some of it. Even if they announce like 20 animations that they're doing, still, still none being released.
Yeah, I mean this one before all we had of this was like a minute of a trailer, and now we have more of that.
Yeah, we got some Gene Circle going, some Imperial Guard action.
So we got 2 minutes of animation, which is
Whoa.
twice as much as we had before.
True, true, but it means it's something. It shows the progress. I mean, it looks nice. That's all I can really say about it. Did we finally get a release date for this? Announcement back in 2018. Jesus.
Would you guys pay to watch it?
Would I pay? Well, that depends. I mean, it depends, right? Maybe if. Well, no, I'll just be serious. I have no interest in any Space Marine kind of stuff. If I'm being honest here, I think Space Marines are kind of bland. But if GW had a streaming service, I don't think I would. I don't think I'd pay to watch it, just because there's not enough anything out there. And I know we discussed this on Friday, I want to say, John. I
Mhm.
mean, Astartes is what, 10 minutes total? Would you want to pay for 10 minutes of content? I mean, how
I think
reasonable is it going to be? Like $2?
I think the issue I have with Astartes being in the streaming is that like Astartes is 10 minutes, right? And it's awesome for 10 minutes. There's no dialogue. It's just awesome Space Marine action. But I don't know how you could stretch that to like a 30-minute episode. You know, like what kind of content will keep us interested in 30 minutes unless there's some good writing, good voice acting. You know, 30-minute
Yeah.
action sequence might like even like some really awesome fan animations for other IPs. Like there was that TIE Fighter anime that's like 10-15 minutes. It's not that long, you know.
A lot of things that are like this that are really, really cool proof of concepts to me. Like this is like a wow, what talent this person has and so much passion, but um, it doesn't necessarily translate to like a feature length sort of project. Like that's just a totally different animal. Um, if this, if Angels of Death was feature length and it was any good and it had good reviews, I would be willing to buy it on DVD. A streaming service is hard to imagine simply because um, GW just doesn't have. Even if all of these projects existed, I don't think there's enough content to warrant anything above, like the kind of $5 mark for a monthly streaming service. Maybe like a yearly, like annual thing. Like you pay a certain amount of money to like get all the stuff they're gonna come out with next year. But because we have so little data on any of these, I mean nothing is out. Nothing has been announced for a release date. There's nothing necessarily on the horizon except for just the vaguest like, hey, this will happen. It's really hard to say. Um,
Yeah, to build on what Will's saying. Uh,
Before you continue, just to fact check myself, the X we want to talk about is 7. This is widely praised Star Wars animation. It's 7 minutes long. So just to hammer in like the length. So carry on, Matt.
yeah, just to build on what Will's saying. I mean, even if they didn't do a streaming service kind of deal, do you really want to pay for 10 minutes of animation? This doesn't really seem worth it. It's best to oh, I mean, well, honestly, they can't do anything worse than Ultramarine. I believe is the feature length Space Marine movie they did.
you know what's funny about that? Ultramarines, I actually think has good voice acting and a pretty solid script. The animation, I think, is the big downfall with that. Have you seen it, Matt?
I have seen it, yes.
What did you think of it?
Uh, Pretty boring, but as you said, the animation doesn't help it. I'm sure the voice acting's fine. It's like the character design and the animation, really bad. Because I'm like, it's like, oh, look at this, it's a bald space marine and another bald space marine. I can barely tell the difference between these two space marines.
Yeah, the cinematography in Ultramarines is also not very good. But like, I mean, John, did you know Ultramarines was written by Dan Abnett?
Yes.
You did know that.
Yes.
It's
That part I know.
it's hilarious that it went so wrong. Like, it's just I think it's just a case of biting off like more than you could chew because I think most people remember that film negatively. And
Mhm.
it actually wasn't that long ago. I want to say Ultramarines came out like 2009, 2010 or something.
Yeah, it was fairly recent from what I remember.
But it looks like it's from like the late 90s.
Right. Now, if you have a Stardust guy doing that, could it be better? Yeah. But that's the thing for me. It's like these trailers, even like full-length feature trailers, like for like an Avengers or Star Wars movie, like there's some dialogue that's cool. But, like the dialogue that we've seen so far is just really bland, and they're just kind of like. I think that the more I hear about the animations, the more I feel the issue is going to be like they're going to ride on the fact that it's Warhammer, yay, watch check it out, and then that can only go so far.
Yeah.
Thing.
Matt, did you? I know John has seen it. Matt, did you see the Lord Inquisitor like short film that got made?
I did not know.
So John, I know you've seen it. That was like an animated project that was like very long anticipated in like Warhammer fan circles. And the animation that finally did get released, the project basically was in development hell for like 4 years. The animation that finally got released is like a 10-minute kind of proof of concept sort of thing. The animation is generally pretty great. Like there's a lot of cool gifs to be taken from it, but like the story and the voice acting and like basically everything else was just kind of a nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always gonna be hard to do any when you make a movie kind of thing because everyone has their expectations on what it should be like and what it should you know look and move like. A good example, I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like Text to Speech. I mean, everyone loves that show or that series.
For the record, I hate text to speech.
You hate text to speech?
Actively makes Warhammer worse as a universe. That is my
We have,
hot take for the month.
we have discovered a talking point. Let's dig a little deeper.
Okay. Well, I'll finish my thought there. I mean, you go with that. that
But
has
it is very popular. I will say that it's very popular.
it has no it has very little animation. I mean, I know in like I want to say like the last 5 years they've added like a little bit of animation to their PNGs, but with good writing and voice acting, managed to make it entertaining enough for it to continue on to this day. So it's just going to be a combination of writing and tone setting and voice acting all together, right? And you need that perfect blend.
I think that's a good example, Matt, just because that is, regardless of what one may feel about the show, I think most people are going to that or they're coming back to it because of the writing and voice acting. Because the animation, as you say, is very limited.
Right.
I would say I agree. I mean, I hate that show, but I acknowledge it is very popular, and it's not popular because it's well animated or there's cool action sequences. It's popular because people find it funny. You know?
People find it funny.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the episodes help you understand the world a little bit more. I know John's just said that it weakens the story, but I mean, they do some lore episodes. But, you know, it's easy enough to get into, right? It's like the same argument you can do with the Warhammer Adventure books, right?
Right. Right.
You can give those to your kids, and it would just give them a nice entry into the Warhammer universe kind of deal. And that's the same thing I can say with TTS.
TTS is an entry point for lots and lots of people who are into 40K. I mean, there's no Games Workshop manager yet living, I imagine, who doesn't have at least once a month, if not once a week, somebody comes in who like hasn't started the hobby but knows TTS.
Right. So, I mean, as we've seen with Astartes and Hell's Reach, I want to say. I mean, the guys got it down. Can they make a feature length kind of movie or a TV series that's, let's just go with average American time with like 21 minutes? I mean, it's possible, but I don't know how long, how consistent we'd be able to get those videos. Unless, they did a bulk work and they have a bigger team animating all this stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to have a ton of faith in the project at the moment, just because nothing has transpired. Like it's all vaporware at the moment. Like we have proof that it's being worked on and that work has been completed, but there's still
And
really nothing here.
and to be fair, if you look at like gaming franchises, there's not really any anime. I mean, Blizzard and whether Overwatch, Warcraft, Diablo, we have amazing animations, but it's not a series, you know.
Right.
I think the closest we got is the League of Legends show that got delayed because of COVID. That's pretty hype, and if they pull that off, I think it's proof of concept for the industry that yeah, you could make some cool stuff based on a video game if you pour the resources on it. But
Did you see the existence of the Dota 2 animated series?
oh, that's right. I should watch
Yeah.
that. I forgot that.
Oh,
Have you seen
man.
it? Is it good?
I think it's terrible. But I don't know what you guys think.
Not one of Hades. The other show is terrible as well. So maybe, and it seems similar.
Video game movies and shows have a lot to live up to, unfortunately.
Castlevania was great.
Well, I mean, if they get the TV treatment, I think they have a better shot than a movie adaptation.
Actually, Mortal Kombat is amazing because it knows it's dumb.
Well, of course.
Talking about the first one.
Yeah.
So I also like I think the Street Fighter movie is great. The one that has Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's
That's a fun
excellent.
one.
Like for my 21st birthday, my brother got me, a case of beer and it was just marvelous. It's self-awareness is important, and I think when I think of a lot of video game movies, I immediately think about those just ghoulishly bad Resident Evil films, and there's like 20 of those. I want to
Oh
say
god, no, there's like 7.
it's still too many.
Yeah, I agree.
But bringing it back to Warhammer, yeah, I have no real faith that this will be more than cute. I mean, people who know me, I like the adjective "cute" to describe something that is effective at what it wants to do, but it's not amazing. It's not gonna be terrible. It's just gonna pass its job, and that's my expectation for Warhammer animations. It's gonna be cool Warhammer animations. I'm not gonna be hyped for it in the way I'm hyped for, like some movies that are gonna come out or like some TV shows I want to watch. Like I'm like cool, I made a Warhammer, and the Angels of Death trailer just kind of solidifies that for me.
Yeah, well, I think I don't think Warhammer animations will ever be strong word. Okay. I don't think any of these Warhammer movie animations that they're doing will ever be for sale kind of deal. Maybe these are kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Pilot kind of episode things where maybe they are trying to get bigger buyers. Then
Right.
they could probably do something with them, but I think all these animations that they're gonna do will mainly be for free
Yeah.
until
I
they
would assume,
can get something, until they can get like a bigger team.
I would assume they're going for like viral marketing as opposed to actual marketing at this point. Just because it it would make sense, and I think they would make their money back pretty solidly if like the videos do well. Because like even if the videos don't do well and they're free, then they definitely shouldn't charge for them.
Right.
It's just
Because
a
then
lot of
even
money that
less
they're putting
people will
into
see it.
this.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is key for the survival of Games Workshop, because like even though it's a household name to some places, it's definitely not a household name to most people. I think people have maybe heard of it but don't know anything about it. Like the reason, one of the main reasons that Games Workshop has its own brick and mortar stores all over the world is so that to increase the chance of people running into it and figuring out what the hobby and what Warhammer even is. So I think for that purpose, like this is where these projects could shine. But until we see anything more, um, it's a little hard to put these eggs in the basket.
Yep. Well, as I'm reading through this article, still no release date on this, so uh, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm still more excited about the Eisenhorn thing, and we still have zero information on that.
That'll be really cool. That's a story that, I mean, I think they've said they just be adapting Xenos, right?
Oh, I would hope they'd be just adapting the trilogy.
Yeah, but even if they, I mean,
So yeah, they'd start with Xenos.
I assume if they do that, that is like one of their best shots at doing something that's not incredibly high budget, and might have some widespread appeal. Because that's a very very solid novel. Have you read Xenos, John?
Is there really a question, Will? Playing you at this point.
Okay, so there's no Space Marines in Xenos, audience. So dear readers and listeners,
Specifically,
not
there
set
are
in the it's not set in the war between brothers in 10,000 years before Warhammer 40,000 begins.
Well,
John
that's
is
a
really a
lie.
hard sell on it.
correct.
That is a lie. There are Space Marines in the book.
Yeah, but were the Space Marines there the day the skies turned dark? Thrown was a
Oh,
trade
good
great.
question. What was the name of that Chaos Space Marine?
I don't remember. I think he was an Emperor's Children though, so
I could have been there, mate. I'm interested now.
I'm pretty sure he was Emperor's Children. Either that or he was Word Bearers. I don't really remember. It's been a long time since I've read Eisenhorn. Probably should have done that before I started reading Pariah, but
I think you're right, because Mandragore is like called Mandragore, Child of the Emperor or something, right?
yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're correct. So there will be a Space Marine.
Well, you got to see how terrifying they are to normal human beings, because Space Marines are really scary.
this means that if that project comes to fruition, we'll have a live action Chaos Space Marine before we have a live action regular one.
Fine with me.
I'm sure they'll put one in the background, CGI it somewhere.
Googling, was Mandragore there the day Horus slew the Emperor? Or the reverse.
Well, while you look that up, I think we can move on to our next topic here, which is the Sunday preview. And we finally got release date for the big model himself.
And the prices were leaked today, so we can talk about that too.
Is he $120?
No. Close.
How much is he? 110?
No, higher.
140, I would say.
140. We'll got it.
140.
That
Okay.
is, he'll be in line with the other greater demons. That is what I was expecting to pay for him, and that is what I'll happily do.
Yeah, I got the UK price, which was £89, and I'm like, so it's $122 USD. I'm like, okay, that's
89 quid, roughly 377 US dollars.
about the sale of a night.
He's pretty big. You know.
Oh yeah.
So I think I am kind of disappointed it's not a dual kit with the Demon Prince, but that's fine. Like, it's Bellacore, you know.
I think it's something about that actually, upon further reflection, is a good thing. Is not only is it an opportunity for them to reinvent the Demon Prince miniature later, but when they do that, they have the opportunity to make it as distinct from Bellacore as possible, to make
Sure.
Bellacore more special. That's
You're
something
saying the new Demon Prince will be cooler than Bellacore, just how the old one is cooler than Metal Bellacore.
I still like Metal Bellacore more than the Plastic Demon Prince. I'm one of those people. But obviously, the new Bellacore is much better. No, I think the reason, to sort of say it a different way, like when we talk about a certain other model that got remastered later today, I think it's a good thing that it's going to be made very distinct from the non-special character version.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with
'Cause
Will
then-
though. I do like the old Bellacore model.
Yeah, I like him too. Not as much as this one, but it's hard not to be a little bit nostalgic about the old Bellacore model. If you grew up in the early 2000s in the hobby, and just remember, him and Archeon getting their minis.
I think I've only ever seen Bellacore once in Fantasy. And that was
He
it.
was a special character, to be fair.
And that was it. That was the only time I ever saw him, was in one game of Fantasy. But yeah, that's finally coming out along with his Broken Realms book in 2 weeks. So, also getting the Nighthawk character and the Stormcast character.
Yeah, these are super
That
cool.
type. It's Guard Steel Soul.
Gardas Steel Soul. Gardas is like the guy.
Let's have some fun. Oh, go ahead. Go finish your thought.
No. My thought was just going to be talking about how cool Gardas is and that he's in a bunch of books that were quality.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
Let's have some fun, considering Broken Realms has been bananas recently. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Read Broken Realms tech list. All right, spoilers over. Well, spoilers begin. Nagash is dead again. Arkan is dead, I guess, again.
The wheel for him has spun many times, but yes, at the moment, Arkan the Black is no more.
The Necroquake is over. So if you guys, your listeners, remember, the Necroquake was the herald of AOS 2.0. It was a magical event, I guess, where the undead kind of started rising up in more frequent numbers, which means like Nagash got more powerful. Actually, endless spells were caused by the Necroquake.
Yes, it basically like weakened the bonds of the realms and like made kind of in a similar way that like all of the undead from Nehekara were resurrected by Nagash. Like it was basically all the graveyards and like all of the ghosts and ghouls and geists across the realms were made more powerful, which is why the Night Haunt army is the thing you can play. Because like death magic became more prevalent and like magic in general sort of was thrown out of control. Now the Necroquake is over. It's a little hard to tell what will happen because like it's pretty clear that like the Night Haunt and the Bone Reapers and all the other like forces of death aren't just going to disappear. But it does seem that death after Gravelords is done will be taking a little bit of a backseat.
But will the elves take a back seat?
You think elves are gonna be triumphant?
No, I was wondering if they're gonna take a back seat on their model count.
Oh hell no, because we're gonna get the wood elves along with the dark elves.
Gotta have more elf models. You gotta make more. They're gonna be making Malekith / Malarion's elves. They gotta make more elves for Alariel, because the ending of Broken Realms tech list basically was like, oh, now that death has been weakened, the powers of life are out of control. Oh god. And for those who take a look at the lore too, like the Sylvaneth, despite being part of the Order faction, despise non-Sylvaneth with like it's described in a couple places like their hatred is so strong that like they're in physical agony because they hate everybody so much.
Sounds like fantasy players.
Yeah, like fantasy players. But they also hate themselves.
Yeah, here's our predictions. What do you think is what's gonna happen? What's Bellacore gonna do? All right, we're gonna know by maybe next week. What's Bellacore gonna do?
Belcor's gonna bring back Fulgrim.
Okay.
Gonna bring him into the world of Age of Sigmar. And yeah, we're finally gonna get a Fulgrim model, but only for Age of Sigmar. He won't be in the 40k just yet.
So because Bellacore hasn't been in the lore of Age of Sigmar basically at all until now, so here's what I'm thinking. So Bellacore is going to show up, and he's he's going to want some more powerful warriors to command. So he's gonna ask he's gonna ask the Chaos Gods to make a plastic Great Unclean One, and a plastic Lord of Change, and a plastic Keeper of Secrets, and then he's going to be told,
Are those already plastic?
those are already plastic. Where have you been for the last 5 years? And then Bellacore is going to be embarrassed, and then the last page is going to be him driving home in 405 traffic and just being miserable. I have no idea what's going to happen in this book. This one is a little bit different from the previous Broken Realms because Bellacore, this is his first appearance. Presumably he's going to destabilize the powers that Archaon has kind of built. So because Archaon is in a awful situation at the moment where like a good eighth of his realm has been taken over by Bone Reapers.
Oh, is there like a StarCraft style base in his realm?
Yeah, so there was a book that came out last year called Wrath of the Everchosen, which really should have been called Wrath of the Catacross, because Catacross just basically showed up, kicked down the door to the 8 Points, which is Archaon's realm, and then just built a gigantic castle and has refused to leave. So if Bellacore is not helping Archaon, then he's basically just going to be causing more problems for him. I'm excited to read it, of course. I can't even begin to speculate beyond that he will be absolutely causing problems for Archaon.
Now, I don't know too much about the Belcore lore, but I thought he was despising Archaon because he has all the favor of the gods right now.
So he created Archaon, more or less. Like Archaon was like a normal person, of a different name, who was just like he was a regular, sort of peasant kid in Warhammer Fantasy, and then Archaon's life was manipulated by Bellacore, like from the very, very beginning, to cause the end times, so that Bellacore could have like a shot to become incredibly powerful, like described as like being, one of the Chaos Gods in terms of strength. I don't think that's likely to happen.
Hey man, put it this way: because of that, he was able to get a model that is not constrained by the confines of a square base.
That's true. So really, Bellacore won. So he shouldn't be angry at Archaon at all. Not only is he, 4 times bigger, but he's on a circle base. But Bellacore is a demon. He's an old man. He's the most boomer of all the demon princes. So he's probably gonna not be very grateful.
Love it.
Well then, interesting. What are your thoughts, John? What is it gonna happen?
I think Archaon is gonna be defeated temporarily. I think Bellacore will be the main chaos bad guy.
Well, I mean, does any like main character really dying in this universe?
Not really. I mean, we say someone could say like, oh, what about end times in fantasy? Like, dude, like half of those losers are back. Are they Stormcast or ghosts? like just straight up
If
resurrection.
you were cool enough to be back in Age of Sigmar, like that's gonna happen for
Then
you.
Marcus
But
Wolfhard is gonna be like a Vanguard Stormcast. No, he's
Marcus Wolfhard will remain in Total War and nowhere else. Like they're gonna maybe they'll have a scene where Sigmar is like, there must be more heroes we can revive from fantasy. It's like, what about Marcus Wolfhard? Hell no, that guy sucks. Bring back Cetra again.
Bring back the Tim Kings. I'll give all my money. Let's go.
Then Broken Realms Apophis, bro. It's gonna be awesome.
God, that guy. I know what that is.
Indeed. And then there's there's some fun start collecting style things, which is usual with the Broken Realms.
Some Zinch, some dinosaurs.
Yeah, those are cool.
That's a great Zinch starter set.
Just a bunch of horrors, huh?
That is a box that I could see someone buying multiples of with no frustration and no sense of FOMO and getting the same thing over and over. Um, the two boxes that have like that the one that has Lady Allender, like I can't imagine somebody would ever want to buy that more than once, even if it is a really good deal and sort of has a cool theme to it. But that Zinch chariot kit can be made into 4 different war scrolls in Age of Sigmar. Um, and not have any wasted bits left over for the most part. So these are really cool boxes actually.
Yeah,
Especially the Dino Time 3D.
yeah,
That one the most.
I would get the ghost one if I didn't already have Lady Olander. Oh god.
Yeah, hence the issue. It's probably going to be a great deal if you don't have Lady Olander, but this is a bit of an odd choice. I'm not sure how that one made it through. I guess they don't really have like kind of a big generic commander that isn't part of some of the starter sets. Like a Knight of Shrouds almost would have been an easier sell, but there's the Tomb Banshee models wouldn't really make a great centerpiece of this box.
Banshees in general wouldn't make a good sell. I think it's good design. It's just like you said, no one would really buy multiples of this. And I mean, if you do, I mean, just sell Lady Olander separately. eBay.
Very true.
Yeah. Well, Forge World, we got what is this? Lord of the Rings? Lord of the Rings dwarves.
I don't know who these
Indeed.
are. Don't really
So
care.
old Dane, and then some, I guess his kid or something. How do you feel about these miniatures, Matt?
How I feel?
Yeah.
They look a bit ugly, honestly.
So you're saying you hate dwarves?
I mean, I'm not saying that I hate dwarves. I'm just saying that I don't like dwarves.
Oh my god. How could you say that?
I know.
Don, quickly defend Celtic dwarves. Your favorite thing.
Lame. Pretty lame.
It's detail-wise, it kind of just looks blocky.
I mean, cool. Like good. I mean, Lord of the Rings is still getting stuff, unlike some other Forge Roll games that I play. But, yeah.
Right. That's the thing with Forge Worlds. It's so random as to what you're actually getting from them. Like for people who are playing Erebor and are playing the dwarf armies, like this is probably sick. But even more people are disappointed that it's not their specific thing. Like if an Alpha Legion Praetor came out, everybody who doesn't have a Praetor that they got recently would be mad. Forge World has too many projects, in my opinion.
Well, they are covering all game systems, but they got the luxury of not having to, have like a weekly release kind of schedule deal. So I would expect the quality to be a bit better.
I actually like these models for what they are. They're not because they're resin. I'm just hesitant. I would be very hesitant in getting them anyway. But for the people who are still clinging to the branch, the branch in the wind of like dwarves from Lord of the Rings. This is a cool release for them.
Well, anything is good, right?
Yeah,
Even
at
if
that
it's
point,
not your army, as long as the game is getting released, it's always good.
Yep.
true.
But nah, that's my thoughts on that. Black Library, we got books.
Yeah, Mortis coming out in paperback.
That's
looks
pretty
like.
hype. I was debating which audiobook to listen to next, and this answered my question. I hope it's Jonathan Keeble. This is hype. Siege
I
of Terror.
imagine. I
Let's
imagine it'll be Jonathan Keeble for the whole series, at the very least.
And then we got some Gene Stiller cult book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Inferno is weird to me. I actually don't remember anybody in my acquaintance telling me that they read Inferno.
Can't say I'm familiar.
So it's sort of like an anthology smorgasbord thing of like Black Library stuff, and I think a lot of these are stories that are either old or like stories that weren't, for whatever reason, were not deemed having their own book worthy. Um, you'll kind of, if you look at it, like you'll see there's no real big names attached to these books. Like not to say that not to say that like the stories might still be good, but they're kind of bundled into these big bargain bin books for a reason. Um, it might just be sort of an example of Black Library throwing things at the wall until it sticks. But Inferno issues generally tend to pile up in stores, in my experience. And this, this is not doing anything to kind of change that.
Hmm.
Mortis is cool though.
Mortis is hype.
I bet it is. Well, let's move on to Model Monday, shall we? We got 2 releases today, and let's. Well, this might have come out yesterday, but I'm pretty sure this came out today.
It's
And
today.
we got the Sisters. This is the first one we're looking at, and when I keep saying that there's no more releases, here we go. We get another release. We get a sister with a halberd and a shield. Interesting choice here. I guess they're giving a more close combat unit other than what are those called? Repentia? The ones with the big swords and just go out there to die kind of deal.
Yeah, like the smaller sort of like quick, lightly armored unit.
If you can call that armor, yeah.
Yeah, or they're wearing pants anyway. Sometimes. Yeah, this is kind of like their more sort of sturdy, uh, like defensible sort of unit.
It's like their take on the Blade Guard.
It's kind of like their take on the Blade Guard. How do you feel about these minis?
It's
Are
just more like random sister stuff that no one asked for, but I guess sisters players are happy to get. If I played sisters, I'd be excited. But it's like, like I guess the criticism is like this could have been social media marketing energy towards Eldar or Tau or something. I think sisters are already in a good spot and they keep getting more stuff.
I think it's good.
I guess they sell well.
I think
Yeah.
it's good because I don't. Sisters keep getting stuff, yeah, because they just got they finally got redone with all their stuff. But all that stuff that got redone is all the old stuff. So that's all stuff from what 4th edition? I want to say
true.
4th or 5th.
3rd or 4th.
So they haven't really been getting. Yeah, all their stuff got updated to plastic, but they didn't really get any new models out of it. So it's good that they're finally getting some variety, so they'll have more different play styles. So I welcome this. I don't think we have any rules to go with this yet. So again, it's just another model out there.
I think it is like not unwarranted that sisters will be getting more things at this point. Fleshing out their range is good. I do not like this model at all.
You don't, huh?
I think this is I've never said this before. I think this miniature is a little too fantasy. The polearm in particular, I think really feels like it just had like the little capacitor and like the light slapped onto it. It looks, the blade of the weapon and stuff. It looks so medieval. It's almost like Feral World levels of medieval. And the shield is very cool. Like this model is well sculpted. Obviously, model fidelity is generally not an issue for Games Workshop. I just think um, this is too low tech.
Maybe
If you
stay up the Party
compare,
Sisters or
no, really, like if you compare what she's holding to her own armor,
mm,
I think there's a disconnect. Like it just doesn't. The shield, I mean, maybe on the back of it, but the shield has like there's no lights, there's no, sort of, it's like field generators. Like it looks like she's got a halberd and a shield. And even though I like halberds and shields, I just think this is too low tech. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I see what you mean because I see there's like a bolter on behind the shield, but like the shield itself is just like some metal thing, you know. Like even like Space Marine combat shields clearly look sci-fi. You know, there's like energy generators. There's like really like Space Marine symbolism in there. Like this is like you're right. Like like this shield could be on a Bretonnian model.
Yeah. Um, like even in the way of like maybe if they'd moved the like so a power axe, is typically not all that crazy looking either in terms of having science fiction elements, but the blade of the weapon is where like the metal casing is and stuff, and where like the power pipes are. Like I just think this if one of the weapons was much more science fiction, I think it would save it. Like Blade Guard veterans, like their shield is pretty ornamental, but like it doesn't from the front, it doesn't necessarily look incredibly science fiction. But then like the power sword or the bolter or whatever they have in the other hand, like is unmistakably 40K. I just don't think this quite gets there, personally. How do you feel about it, Matt?
So I see what you're saying, and I do agree. It does look very fantasy and not very sci-fi, but that doesn't mean it's that bad of a. Because sometimes simplicity is, better than just jamming a bunch of sci-fi stuff to the shield to get the point across. I mean, I see a little power conductor on the axe, clearly showing that it has some power behind it, electricity or whatever. I mean, can't really. I mean, I guess you could, if you were a great painter, convey that it's full of power on it, but
Hmm.
uh, the halberd's fine. I think I would probably agree with you more on is the shield. The shield is kind of bland. Uh, it'll be good to see like maybe there's something on the inside of it, but honestly, I don't think it's that bad of a model. And
It is
and design wise, I don't think it's that bad. I probably just agree with you on the shield part of it being kind of eh.
Yeah, that's fair. It's by no means a disaster. I just thought this one probably, particularly also that the blade head of the halberd is hollow. It just seems like that would snap. Like if you were impacting, like a chaos space marine or something. But yeah, you make a good case for it. I mean, it's not like there's no science fiction elements, and if that is in fact, as you said, John, a bolter behind the shield, that could help on other poses.
Yeah,
Because I guess like a Space Marine breacher shield is, aside from being very clearly metal, it doesn't look
oh,
all that science
it does.
fiction. But
The Beecher shield looks like it harkens to like it's like a Space Marine version of like the riot shield used by police forces. Like this looks
mm,
like a medieval shield. Period.
yeah,
Not even no qualifier there. It looks like a medieval shield.
yeah, you're right. Now that I'm actually looking at breachers, you make a good point. Like the breacher shield is very science fiction. That was a bad example by me.
I
But
think it's
yeah,
just a good point that this shield looks very medieval.
to be fair, I'm not a big fan of the sister aesthetic anyway, so I think I'm sort of predisposed not to be hype about it. Though I will say it's cool that they're getting more infantry. More infantry variety is key to keeping an army interesting.
I just don't think sisters are that interesting compared to Xenos.
I
Like,
agree.
I don't think guardsmen are that interesting. compared to Xenos.
Yeah, guardsmen I think also suffer a little bit from like a not feeling like they belong necessarily. Some of their tank designs are just so too grounded in our own world. Like I think guard is the next thing. That's after Eldar, of course, because Eldar, some of those models are on average like 20 years old. I think Imperial Guard has to be revisited at some point with the degree that Sisters have,
Well,
because
after
I
they
think
destroyed Cadia, I'm sure that'll happen.
some of their stuff is embarrassingly bad by Games Workshop's own standards. They've raised the bar so high.
Yeah. Well, that was that, and then we finally got points for the Piety and Pain chick, the Palatine. Just being a normal 45 points. Pretty good, I guess. For the free
Yay.
rerolls.
Lieutenants.
Lieutenants, hooray! Now for the big new model Monday, which they said was strictly for AOS. We got Lord Kroak.
All right, I straight up flipped out of work when I saw this model. I'm like, what the hell? This like out of nowhere makes no sense to come out. Why would they release this now? And this is amazing. It's freaking Lord Kroak, right? Like, this is great. I love this model.
I must
I love
say,
the
I was not
there.
expecting it. Though I was saying that, if anyone was going to get a new model, I think you even said in the starter set, right? If 3.0 was to happen, it would be the Lizardmen. But
It's funny how it happens where you see the remaster of a miniature and it makes you realize how dated the previous miniature was. So I was not of the opinion that the Lord Kroak model was bad, but this compared to this, it's woefully lacking. Like this guy is like the most powerful spellcaster in Warhammer, right? I don't know if that's like and not in Warhammer 40,000 perhaps, but like in Warhammer Fantasy, like Lord Kroak is, like basically it's like godlike command of mastery of magic. Like bunch of the other people in the lore who were good at magic, Lord Kroak in some way was involved in teaching them magic in the first place, or
Yeah.
like taught their species how to do magic. So this really reflects like the sheer presence that he should have. Like I hope he has some just insanely awesome spellcasting might on the battlefield to represent it.
I'll bring back the pre-nerf Kroak.
Yeah. If he has a greater variety of spells as well, I think that'll be really deserved. A lot of people who play Lumineth really enjoy that Teclis feels like a real master of magic model in terms of all the stuff he can do and like what a presence he has. This is a killer sculpt. I think the only thing that could possibly be considered a trade off to this, and you may have a different view on this, John. I think this model is undisputably going to be way harder to paint than the original.
Oh, absolutely. And it
It's
deserves it.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing. But from talking to a few people, like yeah, this model is going to be a real challenge to paint, and it's probably not going to be $50 anymore.
nope, it's probably gonna be Belcore price.
I could see that for sure. It's going to be at least a Benjamin.
Yeah.
But it is an unreal update and such a surprise too.
I do like that it doesn't use a flying stand. It kind of cleverly uses the floating rings to convey or to help it float.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great model design.
I don't know. I think this model's a bit extra. I
How
think
so?
I like that it's extra because there's a Lord Kroak. Okay, if there was a Slon, I would feel it was extra.
it's just I see. Obviously, this is gonna be a great centerpiece model, right? Because it's got all this design around it. You can do a lot of things with it. But it's a lot going on in this model.
That's true. There is a lot happening here, but I think, as you said as well, because it's the centerpiece model, I think that's more acceptable. Because like this is the new crown jewel in the army, right? This is a model you'll only have one of. You'll see a lot of people running it, but like when it's on the table, like its presence is really going to be felt. So I think for something like this, like it deserved the sort of Silent King Catacross sort of treatment of like making it, it's it's both model and scenery, and there is a lot happening though.
Yeah, that's why like when I go back to the sisters, sometimes simple appeals more to me than all this stuff. I mean, like I said, if I see someone painting this or bring this painted up nice, you know, clap for him. That guy and a lot of work into that. But I would never do this. This would be something I'd like pay someone to paint for me. Because
To
I wouldn't want to do this model dirty, right?
No, yeah, this is a model that's going to be Golden Demon bait for sure. To piggyback off something you were saying, John, um, I'm hoping this is not a multi kit for Aslan. I think in the tradition of Be'lakor that they're setting up, I don't think it will be.
Probably not, but they do give him a head option, so
Which
I
the
think
old model had
there's
too.
our option as well. Oh yeah, the old one does too. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, the old one you could have him. You could have either the full face mask. You could have the face mask slightly up, or you could have just the skeletal face. They've added some what appears to be kind of like remnants of flesh, which is kind of interesting.
That makes sense for mummies. Mummies, have remnants of flesh.
Yeah, that was something I thought was odd about the original model is that he was mummified, but he was like just a skull. It was like, oh, okay, how much of him is left? Um, but he's in terms of the lore, like he's up there with other incredibly powerful dead guys like Nagash. Lord Kroak may even be stronger, but it's also just kind of a fun thing of like, this is Lord Kroak after he's been
Lord Kroak, dude. Oh my!
dead forever,
It's
and
Lord Kroak.
it's Lord Kroak. It's
God.
so cool. What an amazing miniature. This I'm really hoping um, leads to more Seraphon stuff happening because Seraphon I think is in dire need.
well, it's funny
Uh,
you
of-
said that. Because I was skimming through this video that they put out here, which I don't know why Marathi is talking to Lord Croak here, but I was sad to see when we see the models that we don't see any new Seraphim models in
yeah,
this picture.
I don't think there'll be any in the Broken Realms book in which he comes out in. I think it's very possible that they may do that later. Um, but you are correct, Matt. There's none on the horizon, and none being hinted at.
Which is sad.
Then again, yesterday that statement was very correct, and then this son of a gun drops.
Right. Um, I think it could totally happen though. It's also just they would release this. It seems odd that they would do a release for him like this and not have something to follow it up. If not this year, like in the near future, um, like the next couple of years. But yeah, from that video, the unit I think of that is the oldest and most in need of an update are the Saurus Warriors. I don't know what you would say, John, for Seraphon.
Probably bad on cold ones.
Yeah, that's fair as well. Anything I think with the Saurus model that isn't the Temple Guard or the can't recall what their name is right now.
What do they do?
They have a new name, but the elite Saurus warriors are pretty
Oh,
solid.
Temple.
They're still called Temple Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. This model also proves that like Sigmar just has better models than 40k. I'll be honest, in terms of just like what you can do, the design.
Oh, I agree with you totally.
Yeah. Like 40k, here's another tank.
I would hope 40k would get this level of detail, but
like if you think about like what's gonna be awesome in 40k, stuff like the Avatar, like more like Fulgrim, Angron, but those are very fantasy models. Like the Avatar is a pretty fantasy design. It's not very sci-fi.
I mean, it's just a big lava demon.
Right, exactly. It's a dope ass lava demon, but it's not like something you'd see in Halo.
Yeah, I don't think 40k really has like that big special character kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All our characters are on 32 mils or something like that. But never, there's very rarely any characters that will get on like a Titan size base kind of deal. Like with Lord Kroak and Bellicor and Nagash and Marathi kind of thing.
Right.
They're always going to be very small scale in 40k, unfortunately.
Right.
Unless, you know, they make someone up.
They could, but it's like even like someone like Call, it's not as impressive as Bellicor or Croak or something.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very high shoes to fill, unfortunately. And 40k just won't have that. So that's why they gotta just, slowly remake their lines, like with the Craft World and the IG, and I don't really know who else at this moment really needs new models, but those were the two that came to mind.
I mean, there was a recent video by Auspex Tactics, which is kind of a popular minimalist Warhammer 40,000 YouTube series, and he did he went over, somebody had made a chart of all of the ranges that have the oldest miniatures. Eldar models in general like skew to be about 20 years old. Like that's a non-exaggerated number.
Yeah, I know, because I've got majority of the Craft World line. That's from 20 to 21 right now. Yeah, so like my models are at least over a decade old. Because I started
Or,
back in 4th edition.
Orcs have some issues too. Though it seems the way GW has addressed that is by giving them new things. I think they desperately need some of their key stuff redone. And I'm not even like necessarily an orc banner waver.
They just need to get their boys redone, I think, and then it'll help out their line a bit better.
Yeah, it's something that you stressed to me a long time ago, John. Is that like the core options, like the troops, have to look good.
Yeah.
It's so important. They're the thing you're going to be painting the most, the thing that's the most likely to feature in your army. They are absolutely like the face of what you're doing. And when they don't look good, it's it's the rest of the army is kind of compensating for it.
Yep.
Well then, shall we get into our discussion?
We shall.
All right then. So, I believe the discussion is: should you paint your army? I believe, right? Is that what it is?
There's probably, I think all three of us have a one word answer to this, and I imagine it's the same one, but lots of people don't for whatever reason, right?
Well, should we get our answer out there right now? Are we all an astounding yes?
Absolutely.
Think that is an affirmative here. So the reason I sort of wanted to talk about this is like, even though I know how we all feel about it, like, kind of to go back to what I was thinking about the conversation we had last week about like refusing a game. Um, there is a there is a fresh hell of being a fully painted army playing against a gray army. I have been I've been both of those players. I have been the person who has, an army that's not mostly painted playing against someone who's fully painted. Recently that's happened a lot with you, John, where you're fully painted and like my stuff is getting there but not done.
Oh, for Legion.
For Legion, absolutely. Um, my Star Wars Legion droids are finally almost finished. Now I'm working on Cursed City, so I haven't quite gotten Darth Maul done. But it's very common to run into people who have no interest in painting at all, and have no intention to do so, or perhaps at the very least they're getting somebody else to paint their army. But why should we do this? Why does it matter? What would you say, Matt?
Well, I mean, one, painting your army competitive side, right? It's good to know what is what, who is who, kind of deal,
That's an interesting angle.
right? Well, because in competitive, if you were fighting like an all gray army kind of deal, it's hard to tell what unit has what kind of special weapons, who's the unit leader. Uh, if you have like a HQ character kind of deal mixed in with a blob, it's kind of hard to distinguish where he is, kind of thing. And I mean, even players would forget sometimes that that person's in there.
I
And
would never have considered that. That's fascinating.
yeah, I mean, so it's good. I mean, it's the whole reason why. Well, I mean, I mainly gamed at a place called Green Towers, where you get points for having painted, but you didn't have to be fully painted, kind of thing. But tournaments like LVO that I've been to, I mean, that's a requirement. If you don't have your army painted, I mean, they'll. So they say. I've never seen them actually do this. They'll pull your model off the table. But that's what they say. I've never actually ever seen them do anything.
They've
Like
done
that.
it in top tables, I think. If you're like part of like the final cut and you don't paint, they'll pull it out.
Yeah.
I recall for War Machine at a lock and load, watching an altercation, quote unquote, altercation between somebody who was in one of the final kind of rounds, and they determined that like a bunch of his models, the lower half of the miniatures were all just like raw primer, and it was kind of a scandal of like the top parts of the models were like dry brushed and had some colors on them, but like there was very clearly the miniatures were not done. And he was in like the top 30 people in the tournament, and he I don't think was able to finish. At the very least, it becomes a problem at those really high levels of play. It is something that almost everybody on the surface requires. I mean, you'll never see you'll never see like a codex or a battle tome or something with unpainted models in it, except for the purpose of tutorials, right?
Right.
For like any game. It is just kind of something that it seems to be the default of like the understanding is, yeah, you will paint these, right?
Right. And I mean, like I said, just from competitive wise, I mean, it's just nice to know what is what. It's easy to identify that that's the unit leader. This is what they have. These are the kind of guns they got. That's a character. Visually, it helps you understand what you're fighting or facing, and it's just easy to identify what's what instead of a massive blob of gray. But I would like to get your guys' opinion, since I know you guys don't really do the competitive as much, but I know John's a real stickler on painting, since he won't fight anyone 30k without a painted army.
Yeah,
Correct.
John, why is that?
Correct. I think for me, a big part of the hobby is that kind of thematic. Well, sorry, a big part of Warhammer is a big thematic, like it's like an almost diorama like feel where you have great terrain, great table, great fully painted armies, and that every moment you could stop and look, and it looks like a diorama. Some moments cooler than others, like turn 2 or 3 probably look cooler than like deployment, but the fact remains that like yeah, like this is a huge battlefield and it looks dope. Everything's fully painted. And for me, that kind of immersion, quote unquote, is part of the appeal, especially for something like Horus Heresy, where I'm playing for the lore, for the narrative, for just seeing, these cool kind of evoking the images I get from the books. Now for 40k, like in our gaming group, I always push for like, hey, let's try to get fully painted as much as possible. Because for me, like, and I'm gonna compare this to Star Wars Legion, because Star Wars Legion, I'm less a stickler for painting, because for Legion, the game itself I find more interesting than the hobby part. While in 40k, I find the game less interesting than the hobby part. Like I think 40k as a game isn't as good to warrant like not focusing on the hobby. Like for me, like I don't play 40k because I don't play 40k for the game, because to me the game sucks as a game. Like as just a game by itself, I think it sucks. I think the appeal for me for 40k is the minis, the fully paintedness, and just having like that hobby part, seeing on the table, having my cool space marines or custodians fighting the Xenos. That's the appeal for me, is the kind of visual immersive, again quote unquote immersive, because it's plastic minis at the end of the day, kind of experience. And it's even pushed more so with Horus Heresy. That's why I'm really try to push for fully painted. And for Horus Heresy, where that's a straight up game designed for that narrative aspect, like that game as a game is garbage. Horus Heresy the game is garbage. I've said that before. It sucks. But the hobby and the narrative are 10 out of 10. And if I don't want to spend my time playing a game that sucks when the hobby side isn't fully there. And I don't expect it to be like Golden Demon standard, but try to do battle ready, base, wash, highlight, fully based, like texture paint, wash, dry brush, make sure your base rims are painted. That's it's let's roll some dice kind of thing.
Let's see. What about you, Will?
So I think to a certain degree, an unpainted model is something you get with the implication that you're going to paint it. If you get something that you can paint yourself, like that's why you should paint it. Like painting a miniature doesn't bring it to life. Painting a diorama doesn't make Warhammer real, but it does do something. Like there's like kind of an unexplainable like elemental joy in just seeing like a fully painted table and like fully painted miniatures going at it, even with the game. The game kind of being a backdrop for it. To me, miniatures are a lot like it's a lot like having a sports car. Like you can have like an awesome 2000 point painted, army of, Harlequins, let's say, like one incredibly hard army to paint. You may not have any intention of like playing with them in the same way you may not have no intention of going 180 miles per hour in your sports car, but it being painted just makes it so much more. Um, that's kind of a sort of a wishy-washy sort of hippie way to say it. Like I think it enhances the whole hobby if your stuff is painted. As to why you should, though, I think you should paint your models if the people you play with also do, which is kind of part of the social contract aspect of it. Because, like, I wouldn't generally want to tell anybody how they should spend their free time. Some people hate painting. They just do. And they would never do it, and they would never do the hobby if they had to paint themselves, or like people who don't like painting and like playing tournaments and stuff, they'll get someone to paint their army for them, or they'll get their army painted so that they can play against their friends who have painted armies. But the gray plastic just does not capture any of that miniature magic at all to me. Like what you were saying, John, about like Legion, that game appeals to you on a game perspective. Like so it being painted is really obviously a huge bonus and something you would want to do, but like you would be willing to, if you were playing with an opponent that you enjoyed playing with and you were getting a challenging game, like you would be okay if your opponent was gray.
Yeah, because that game I play for the game mostly. The hobby part is option. Well, not optional, but not as important.
Yeah, but even for big tournaments of Legion, right? The expectation is you'll be painted.
It is, yeah, absolutely. Because there's still the element of having that painted kind of feel, of the diorama feel, where it looks cool because everything's painted. It's immersive, but I'm not as a stickler for that than for Horus Heresy or Warhammer in general.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm guilty of not having my models painted. Uh, Mainly because I like to test out a bunch of stuff, and if it doesn't work, I don't want to spend my time painting that kind of stuff. But I mean, even if you look at my battle reports that I posted, some of those models, I mean, you'll see unpainted models, you'll see gray models, and it's just mainly because I like to play the game more than I like to do the hobby aspect of the hobby, right? I find the game more fun than the hobby aspect of it. I'll paint my models, or I'll get someone to paint it, depending if it's Lord Kroak status. But I enjoy the hobby to play. So unpainted models are not a big deal. I think it's more of a big deal if it's like a requirement tournament status. that's when I find it a problem.
Should tournaments require you to have painted models?
Yes.
Interesting. Why do you think that is? Because that's something that has nothing to do with the gameplay.
I would disagree with that. I think it has everything to do with the gameplay. Because it's even if it's not I'll just throw an example. Built-in Eldar, right? The green and white kind of thing. Even if it's some custom kind of thing, I would still be able to easily identify what everything is if it's painted. If
Like
it's
you were saying before.
yeah. So being able to identify everything easier means I know what more to look out for, where everything is, and I can placement better. If everything's gray and it looks, the same, it's a lot harder, especially if they're hiding in between infantry. How am I going to be able to identify that?
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean clarity. I mean, obviously, that's a pretty compelling reason to do it.
I mean, it's like
Wow.
the modeling for advantage, right? Kind of thing.
Yeah,
Painting for advantage.
Painting for advantage.
which is something people do. In War Machine, there were particular paint schemes that I talked to like people at like their sort of big events at like War Machine Weekend and Lock and Load, and there was a particular paint scheme that was a brown and orange paint scheme that was designed to make the models like kind of hard to look at, and it made it in some cases more difficult to gauge distances between miniatures. At least according to the people who had those armies. Isn't
Interesting.
isn't that crazy?
That's
It was
pretty
like
hilarious.
a silver, orange, and brown color scheme that was like very. It was, and they would look very strange, sort of put near each other. And I kept seeing these armies, and I was like, "What is this? What is this?" It's like, "Oh, dude, that's that's skill painted, bro." Like what? Uh, paint for advantage, I guess. Unpainted for advantage would be a bad thing. And this
Yeah.
is a little different from stuff like those we've all kind of seen in our time, armies that are modeled for bizarre advantages of like the models being on their stomachs or like the models being arms sticking out of bases or just, things that are not being modeled for artistic reasons.
Right.
What,
And
what do you think about this tournament thing, John? Like, why should tournaments require people to paint their models, even like in something like Legion? Like, why is that necessary?
Like I don't think there's a practical reason. It's just like the whole it's this mythical spirit of the game kind of thing. Like the game was designed to be painted, so we should just paint it, even though you don't need that stuff. Like even Legion, like silhouettes make it so you don't really need miniatures, but people do them anyway. Even which is weird because even back in the day when there were no silhouettes, people did them all for advantage. It's like the intangible like social contract community thing of like, yeah, it just looks better painted. Might as well get it painted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty rare to run into people who prefer gray models, though they do exist. I know I've told you, John, the story about the fantasy player who came in with his Bretonian army, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll share this with you as well, Matt, because I think it's amusing.
It's
So
pretty fun.
when I was working at the first job I had at a Games Workshop store, I was like a shop assistant, and we like Age of Sigmar had recently come out, so we were trying to get fantasy players to give the new game a good shake, right? And this dude came in who had boasted to have 5,000 points of Bretonians. Bretonians, for those who don't know, are sort of an army of like Grail knights, and the army was uh, definitely known for being a challenging one to paint up, even if you didn't have many miniatures, because there was a lot of freehand required. They have heraldry and all these designs that you had to write in and checkers and stuff and horse cloaks. So this guy came in and he was like, "Yeah, man, I have 5,000 points of Bretonians." Like, dude, that's awesome. Like, come to our mega battle on Saturday. It's gonna be great. Showed up with 5,000 points of gray models that he'd had for like 15 years. Not a spot of paint on them. No primer. No nothing. And I was like, "Well, I thought you had 5,000 points of Bretonians." He's like, "Yeah, they're right here. 5,000 points, ready to go." And then he was like making fun of other people for wasting their time painting their miniatures. And so like obviously, his team betrayed him and the other team crushed him so that he would leave and never return to the store ever again, like you do. But it was a true like valley of ideology between us of just like what, like I do not get that at all. Like I couldn't even fathom why this guy would purchase that army, and like an army that was so tied to painting and like artistry and stuff. Like why would you do this? And he wouldn't understand why I would paint my models, and that just kind of happens. Like people don't want to do it for whatever reason, or they do want to do it. I mean, John, your answer was sort of similar to mine of like, yeah, it just looks better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like this is how it should be? Question mark.
Well, I was kind of like that guy. I didn't really like. When I first got into the hobby, I was really not big into painting. So I had, my models painted up. I still have my old crappy Eldar army. That's, my first army that I painted up. Looks like garbage. But when I started diving into other armies, I just leave them gray and just play the game because, like I said, I only liked playing the game. But as years gone by, I've started just painting up my armies, and because in the end, you want something to look good on the table as well.
Yeah, and it's not even like an invalid perspective to be that guy of like that's why I was kind of saying like I just couldn't understand him and he couldn't understand me. Like it was like why would you do this? Why would you paint your models or why would you not paint your models?
It's the same for me when like playing Horus Heresy unpainted. It's like the game sucks. You can't even tell the legions apart because everyone's a space marine if you're not painted.
Oh, true.
Like why are you playing?
Yeah. And those people exist. There are people who just they want the resin.
Yeah, dude, they need to stop playing Horus Heresy. Dilute the hobby.
They definitely need to stop playing Horse Heresy with you.
Yeah.
Leave the hobby is a better recommendation. Is like set up your models and like get the hell out of here.
Because
Well,
yeah, that's fair. Like if you find it like I feel about Legion, I like the game, so I'm not as to play fully painted all the time. And even in 40k, I play it not fully painted. A good amount of the time. But again, like for Horus Heresy or AT, it's like yeah, like you play for the. I like to say you should play for the immersion and like again that narrative aspect.
Oh, AT, I can't imagine unpainted. That one is even weirder to me, unpainted.
Right.
Because
well,
that's a game that to me is about immersion.
Yes.
hmm. well. I know John doesn't have this problem. I don't know about you, Will. Since I see John paint up an army in like less than a month, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm bored with this army. I'm gonna sell it."
Yeah, yeah. I don't operate that way for sure.
But
There
yeah,
was a time when I did, but I do not have like I definitely like I used to be that way. But for me, I think I've just gotten in my dotage. I've just gotten slower on certain things, and like my interest in armies tended to be because I would say like one of the just guessing, John. One of the reasons that like you've played so many different armies is like you get a lot of reps in with the armies that you have.
That's true.
Like you played more games with your Ideneth Deepkin than some people who just have Ideneth Deepkin will ever play in their whole lives. Uh, it just this is how it is. Like it makes sense that because I think you sort of live in you're like a middle ground of like you do lots of gaming, you do lots of painting, like you're not somebody who would play gray, but you're not somebody who's going to spend 400 hours on a fishman. Like you'll spend
Right.
a long time on models that you really think are worthy of your time, thinking like your Sanguinius, your Nagash, your Eidolon, stuff like that. But I've always sort of read you as like you're not going to sweat the small stuff to a certain degree if it's going to prevent you from getting an army fully painted and good to go.
Absolutely.
yeah. But what I was bringing up about that point is something that helped me really get into painting up my army kind of deal. Is because with my gaming group, we have like me and Travis. We're really bad when it comes to painting our armies. we are the problem with the hobby. So what we did is we started an escalation league kind of deal where we set amount of points, and then every month we add like 250 points to our army, and everything had to be tournament ready, and that really helped us get our armies painted up, and you know it just helped us get ready painted. I'm losing my
That's a
words here right now, but
no. It's a great idea. And
That's
it's
awesome.
not one that is necessarily, I would say, unique to your group, but it doesn't make it any less valid. Like, nothing gets someone to start painting their models like their friends also doing it too. Of like, we're gonna all paint this stuff. That's why that's why you should, instead of turning on the TV, that's why you should go and pick up the brush, right?
right. I mean, because we all like to play the game, and it's just a great motivation to also learn your army, because it was like a tournament kind of thing where I think we started with like 750 points and just added 250 points from there on each month, and just made a competition out of it, really.
Yeah, by the time you reach 2K, the rules change.
Luckily, it didn't change on us there, but yeah, I could see that happening. But that was our great motivation to get tournament ready, and I think that's what also prompted us to actually do LVO, was to get our
Yeah.
army painted for that.
Having an event is the greatest fire you can light under your ass for sure. I don't know how many of my models were painted and based for the reason of like, I'm getting on a plane, I am going to a tournament in a different state. If I show up with unpainted models, I am a giant idiot.
Yeah, well,
But
it's
it's funny
always
that
good to have.
even though we had different reasons slightly, we all said yes to you should paint your models.
Of course, even if you have to get a commission, I think you should have your models painted.
I think that's true as well. Particularly if you're like, at that point, like, it's not just like for tournaments where it's a requirement, but I think most people enjoy having the painted models more, even if they don't like the act of painting itself. And it just makes the table look better. It just makes the little toy soldiers that much cooler.
Agreed. But I think we've said enough on this
Even
topic. Unless you guys got something else you want to add.
nothing more to add. I think we covered a pretty wide array there.
All right then. Let's end off on the hobby rant section, shall we? Um, I think I'll go first today. So I got 2 games in with my Dark Eldar against sisters, a battle, and Greg's Death Guard, and they were both rough games. I came out on top, but I still need to work around what I need to do for that army. Oh, because
Why were they challenging?
excuse me, you're here a cat, but just ignore that.
Hold on though. What is the name of your cat?
Armageddon.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Armageddon Apocalypse. So, um, why was it tough? Because Death Guard in general will always be tough, just because of how durable they are. T5, -1 damage kind of deal. So if you're a 2 damage army, you're just never gonna do anything more than 1 damage at a time. Plus, they have a lot of auras, as I was figuring out there. Something like you charge in, it doesn't count as a charge, and I can just remove models from you, and then you can't pile in because you didn't count as charging in. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of lame. Uh, but yeah, the Death Guard game was really tough to go through. Unfortunately, I didn't make a battle report out of it because I'm kind of just still testing the waters on everything. Uh, and unfortunately, I didn't get Cursed City. I went to the Warhammer store and there was like 10 people waiting outside to get a copy. I was like, what?
I went NECA? Dang.
Yeah, I know. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I was like, damn. Oops. Guess I'm not gonna get that. So hopefully a reprint will be coming out soon, so me and my group can go out and play it.
Yeah,
But
I think they are making a second wave.
Yeah, it is. The game is being pretty heavily scalped online. Hopefully, uh, they will within reasonable time frame get more boxes out. I think that's their intention.
I would hope so. But you guys are lucky enough to get your copies.
Yeah, I part of it also was that I was able to go to a store that just so happened had less, um, a little bit less fire under the Cursed City thing. Like the store I went to, Pariah Nexus, yeah, no chance. But like Cursed City, I was able to, got in line, showed up, was able to get it with really no difficulty, and so that was a pretty easy way to do it. And I think John just had lightning fast reflexes.
Yeah, he was an early bird.
Oh
Speaking
yeah.
of
Yeah.
John, he also demoed Star Wars Legions for me and my other friend. So we got a Star Wars Legion beginner game in again.
Awesome.
And that was my week. How about you guys? Let's go with Will. How about you, bro?
Well, so I mean, aside from getting Cursed City very recently, I was working on finishing up my droids, but also uh, working on my Slaves to Darkness army for Age of Sigmar. Recently, a couple of the dudes in my gaming group have been getting pretty interested in getting back into that. Just because those models are so cool, and Broken Realms is happening, AOS 3.0 very likely could be on the way, and because Cursed City is Age of Sigmar already, it just kind of felt like a natural thing to do. So I've painted up some Chaos Warriors that I've had for a long time, thanks to John who got them for me 2 Christmases ago, and adding to that, really just having a great time. Those models are so evocative and have so much character. So I'm really excited to be doing that right now. But at the moment, Cursed City is my aim. I got left, I think, with the easier part of the painting job. John might get into that more with what he's going to be working on in the near future. Since we're sort of splitting up the work, painting our box for our group.
I mean,
But
I'm halfway done with 6 skeletons over the course of the podcast.
that's funny. Yeah. So Cursed City is going to be my aim for right now because that is absolutely something that I would not play gray. So working towards slaying the gray on that one. How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I'm getting some AOS hype because of Cursed City and the 3.0 being rumored. So again, I'm playing vampires, so I'm painting some of this Cursed City stuff, for the game as well as to start working on my vampire army. Finished my clones, so I just had to finish Lando and kind of done with Legion for a bit. I already have a lot anyway. So we'll be working more on AOS. AOS hype is going for sure. And yeah, we did Black Crusade. We did our last session before Cursed City, and that was fun. But now, yeah, it's gonna be AOS for sure for the next few weeks.
Eh, sounds like a lot of fun.
It's pretty hype.
Well then, I think that is a good place to wrap up. I think I think we'll call it right there.
Well, thank you again for hosting, fellas, and for putting together the trash fire that keeps us warm in the cold, merciless night.
Of course, always got to keep warm in these in the winter. Soon to be scorching hot over here, sunny California.
Yeah.
It'll be scorching soon.
Keep those resin miniatures out of your cars, everybody.
Well, you don't want a new model? You can model advantage with that.
Oh, conversion. Turn a loyalist Space Marine resin army into a Nurgle army.
There you go.
Puddles.
All right then. Well, until next time, guys.
Later,
See ya.
everyone.